Has there been a secret government organization named Majestic 12 covering up the truth about extraterrestrials and UFOs for decades? If so, how did they come to be? And who's involved? Are the documents that leaked about this group legitimate? And what do they tell us about extraterrestrials? Do we now have evidence of how John F. Kennedy was really assassinated?
Welcome to Edge of Wonder. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Rob. Have you ever wondered where X-Files, Men in Black, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Dark Skies, and a slew of other sci-fi movies got a lot of their ideas from?
Well, some of these may not just be in the imagination of the writers, and sometimes, as we found out, the truth may be stranger than fiction.
1947 and 1952 was a hot time for UFO-related sightings and crashes. Top secret documents state that over 16 crashes were recovered, where a whopping 65 ET bodies were reportedly recovered in these crashes.
So everyone knows about the Roswell crash that happened in July of 1947. But what people don't know is that there is even a more massive and secretive crash that took place in Aztec, New Mexico, on March 28, 1948. There's even a plaque at the location where it supposedly happened.
It is said that the security recovery operation was led by the Air Force and 5th Army Division. They removed a craft that was over 100 feet in diameter and 18 feet tall.
The craft had 17 alien dead bodies, but this isn't what freaked everyone out. UFO researchers and insiders said that they also removed a large amount of random human body parts.
Holy, that would freak anyone out. So the Aztec crash remains one of the most top secret guarded topics in the history of the US.
But think about it. Pressure from the public would definitely demand answers, and wouldn't the public freak out if they knew? An elite group of people decided that they needed something to handle all of these situations.
Something that could operate in the shadows without oversight.
Something that could make decisions without asking approval from even the president.
Something that would eventually become the greatest threat our country might have ever seen.
Thus, the Majestic 12, or MJ-12, was born. So stay tuned to hear how the NSA, the CIA, and the MJ-12 were all created. So one day in 1984, Hollywood producer and filmmaker Jamie Shandera received a package without a return address. All there was inside was a roll of 35mm undeveloped film.
When Shandera developed it, he realized it contained 8 pages of an alleged briefing paper dated November 18, 1952, in which Vice Admiral Roscoe Hellencotter, sorry if I've butchered that, told President-elect Dwight Eisenhower of the recovery of remains of 2 crashed spaceships.
So these documents say a lot, but it mentions that these crafts do not originate from Earth, even mentions Mars being a possibility, or another system altogether.
Which, if you haven't watched our show on Mars, could actually be true. So anyway, it goes on to say that the object recovered at Roswell had writing and patterns they have never seen before, and most importantly, they describe that it doesn't have any wings, propellers, any other conventional methods of propulsion and guidance, as well as a lack of metallic wiring electronic components.
It states specifically that on July 7th, 1947, a secret operation began to assure the recovery of the wreckage, and the civilian and military witnesses were debriefed, and reporters were told that it was a weather balloon.
Haven't heard that one before. But on July 8th, one newspaper printed the story of it being a UFO after arriving on the scene when it happened, and even getting photos of the officers who were probably not briefed yet.
So you can find these documents on the FBI website. However, they just have the words bogus written on it with big letters, just to let everyone know that writing something in big letters must mean it's fake. Well, apparently the FBI thought this tactic would work as well. And if you look at it on Fakepedia, it also says, of course, it's fake. So it must be.
Then it must be fake. Okay, so how did MJ-12 actually form?
Well, since the military and President Truman were trying to figure out how to keep all of this from getting out to the public and exposed, on September 24th, 1947, he passed one of the most important and scariest pieces of legislation, the National Security Act.
So, as if you guys haven't already guessed, Truman signed this executive order, which gave rise to the CIA, the NSA, and soon to be the Majestic 12.
Now, on the surface, what we know is that this was the start of the Cold War, and security became a major concern. So it was thought that if they organized what was the Central Intelligence Group, then they can protect the country better against foreign threats.
However, this only made it easier for them to work in the shadows, monitor and gather intelligence from covert activities from either home or abroad.
So many insiders say that the real reason that this was all set up was to make it a lot easier for the government to cover up and control the alien secret, and that it was one of the biggest secrets still guarded today.
So from this moment on, the official stance of the US government is that UFO and aliens definitely do not exist, and that anyone who says they do are probably crazy.
So Rob, I guess I would be included in that book as being crazy since, I mean, I was just at the contact in the desert and I actually saw a
that
UFO.
Which actually means you just made the title of that conference literal. And we can now market it as Make Contact in the Desert with Ben. Well, wait till we start talking about that document that leaked about MJ-12 and how they handle people talking about UFOs. You're actually not wrong about how they treat you.
Yeah, so you guys got to keep watching to hear about this crazy document.
During this time, a lot of secret memos and documents started to be passed around by President Truman and various high-level top officials, which finally set the stage for creating the Majestic 12.
So the Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal, teamed up with Dr. Vannevar Bush, who, by the way, was also in charge of the Manhattan Project, which created the atomic bomb. So they got together with 10 other high-ranking military officials to take control of all extraterrestrial contact.
I read the whole document, Ben.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, well, is this document real? Is it not? But as I kept reading it, I was like astounded by the level of detail that this thing went into. I mean, it's literally the instruction guidebook on how to handle it if an alien craft lands or comes down, right?
Right.
They're talking about what the extraterrestrials look like, what materials they've used or that they found on these ships. And the scariest part that I found was what to do about people in order to keep everything secret.
Wow.
I mean, it was like
basically like use any means
necessary.
And you don't even have to contact the president, like, is it okay if we do this? It's like you have total clearance to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So let's get back to our story now with more of like MJ-12 coming back into this. So coming into this actually, and I think this goes along with why these documents were released, there was actually a faction that started to develop within the group.
a positive
faction. Yeah. So James Forrestal was very idealistic and a religious man, and he didn't want to have all the secrecy about these UFOs and aliens, and thought, hey, the public should know about this. I mean, this is some crazy stuff we're dealing with, and maybe the public should know. So he began to talk to other, other people within the group and whatnot, and soon President Truman found out, and basically he was forced to resign. He's like, look, you're gonna resign, this can't happen. So anyway, Forrestal was eventually placed in a mental institute, and he was deemed crazy because he kept talking about aliens. It was like, again, this guy's crazy, he's talking about aliens, we gotta send him to the hospital. And eventually he killed himself by tying a sheet around his neck and jumping out a window, and supposedly even writing a suicide note.
Right, and so his buddies in this faction we're talking about, they find broken glass inside his room, which suggests a struggle, and they think, and probably believe him, that his suicide note was forged.
Right, and so he actually becomes what is known as the first cover-up, death cover-up of the whole alien secrecy.
So Ben, let's get into where President Eisenhower comes in on this.
So in 1953, Dwight Eisenhower becomes president and takes office. Soon he's on an aircraft carrier and actually sees a UFO and starts demanding what is going on, and sends a letter to MJ-12 saying, like, what are you guys doing? So he demands everything that they're doing, and of course they refuse. So he sends his own military over there, and what would you say the military would get?
It's the First Army.
Yeah.
Which is like, these are at the time especially, these were like the boss army, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he sends these guys over there, and finally they're like, okay, fine, we'll release some stuff to you, whatever,
Yeah, we sped that whole part up. It took a little more time for Eisenhower to get angry and have to send the army over.
Yeah, to Area 51. Right.
In February 1954, President Eisenhower interrupts his vacation in Palm Springs, California, to make a secret trip to a nearby Air Force base to meet two extraterrestrial aliens, or, as it said in the media, he went on an emergency dentist trip. Had to get those molars fixed, I guess.
It was here that Eisenhower reportedly signed a treaty with these extraterrestrials, or got a tooth filling. It is now generally believed that he was forced into this, however, and then regretted it his entire life. So Laura Eisenhower, who's actually becoming a really good friend of ours.
Hi, Laura.
So she talks about this at quite good length in our last video interview that we did with her.
Yeah. Actually, if you haven't checked it out, we did one interview with her, and we have another one from Contact in the Desert. And she basically talks about how she's felt guilty about how she thought about him, you know.
You could say that one of his biggest mistakes wasn't actually signing the treaty, but it was asking Nelson Rockefeller for help with this alien issue. Because of this, Nelson was able to be very influential and got so much power that he almost became more powerful than the president.
So really, in a way, he had no choice but to sign this treaty if this was the way it actually went down, because he wanted to release all of this to the public when he found out that these aliens deceived the US. But by this time, MJ-12 was becoming so powerful that even the president of the US really couldn't do anything about it.
So supposedly this treaty was that they could only work with the US, abduct some people, but they had to bring them back. They couldn't harm them or do anything with that, with those people, and they couldn't do anything else with any other country. Very soon they found out that, well, this wasn't happening, people weren't being returned, and they started finding out that they were making deals with Russia and probably China and all kinds of things. So now this brings up the whole other issue with President John F. Kennedy. So stay tuned if you want to find out what might have actually happened to John F. Kennedy.
You could stay tuned, or we could tell you right now.
Let's tell you right now. So John F. Kennedy, after he became president, he started getting also involved with this Majestic 12, figuring out what was going on. And supposedly, now it's hard to find that this document exists, but supposedly he wrote a document to MJ-12 stating everything that they've been doing, what is going on, where their funding is coming from, and that if they don't respond to him, he's going to expose them. This is where this really interesting document comes in. So we'll show you
a less lame image of this.
Okay.
It is in rough shape, let's put it that way.
So this is like a printout copy. But anyway, so there's this burned copy that was found, and it's titled Top Secret MJ-12. The interesting thing is it says Director of Central Intelligence MJ-1. So that's Alan Dulles.
Before we talk about this document, you have to understand that John F. Kennedy had a code name, and that code name was Lancer.
Yeah.
Lancer was his code name. And this document goes on to basically say that Lancer is asking too many questions, right?
Exactly. And they're like, what should we do to handle this situation? So the problem is that there's no actual date on this document, but supposedly very soon after this document came out, he was killed. The message that they were sending out, the MJ-12, was saying, hey, we just killed a president.
Yeah. Anybody else want to mess with us? We did hear some other things, like some other people saying that Kennedy was going to release a lot of this information to Russia. On the record, Ben and I don't think that's what happened.
Right.
I think Kennedy was clean. I don't think that was going on.
So where are we today? Let's kind of go into what's happening today. Where is MJ-12 and what's happening with our society right now? So of course MJ-12 probably is no longer called this. I mean, anything that's kind of
to make a long story short, the letters in the name have probably changed.
Yeah. The reason why I believe that most likely that these are real, there's a lot of people that are involved with the government, like this side of the government, that want the public, they want disclosure. So they are sending out things. And then you have the other side who is trying to cover this up. So I think right now where we are is that there is a division of the two sides.
Yeah, it actually exists. It didn't go away.
And now, like, you have this side that's what they're calling the Alliance, which is releasing more information and trying to get the public aware.
And get technology into people's hands, like what Emery Smith is doing.
Exactly.
And stuff like. Okay, that ends our Edge of Wonder episode on MJ-12. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, definitely. And until next time, we'll see you out
on the edge. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this episode.
If you want to watch the rest and get access to our full catalog of content with hundreds of videos that will keep you entertained for hours and hours, subscribe to rise.tv.
Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss a single new drop.
Yeah, and we'll see you out on the edge.